Somewhere right now, there's a photo of you as a baby, maybe taking your first steps, maybe laughing at something hilarious. You have zero memory of it. None. And the standard explanation, your brain wasn't developed enough, isn't actually true. Your infant brain wasn't failing. It was running a far stranger process than anyone expected. In 1905, Sigmund Freud was the first to formally name this gap. He called it infantile amnesia, but Freud didn't know the actual mechanism. That came almost a century later, and it's genuinely bizarre. First, let's confirm something. Babies absolutely can form memories. In the 1980s, psychologist Carolyn Rovee-Collier at Rutgers tied a ribbon from an infant's ankle to a mobile above the crib. Babies quickly learned that kicking made it move, and they loved it. Days later, brought back to the same crib, they remembered instantly and started kicking again. 2-month-olds retained this for days, 6-month-olds retained it for weeks. So memory formation works in infancy. The problem isn't storage, it's what happens after. Part of the explanation is structural. The hippocampus, the brain region responsible for converting lived experience into long-term memory, works closely with the prefrontal cortex in adults. But in infants, that wiring is nowhere near complete. Critical structures like the dentate gyrus, which acts as a gateway for new memories, aren't fully developed until somewhere between ages 2 and 4. Your brain could capture short-term experience. It just couldn't file it away permanently yet. But here's where things get genuinely strange. In 2014, neuroscientists Sheena Josselyn and Paul Franklin at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto proposed something almost paradoxical. The very process that builds your brain might also be what erases your earliest memories. During early childhood, the hippocampus produces new neurons at an extraordinary rate, a process called neurogenesis. It's essential for development, but each new neuron that integrates into existing circuits potentially disrupts the connections already stored there. They tested this in mice, with results published in the journal Science. When researchers artificially boosted neurogenesis in adult mice, those mice began forgetting previously learned information. When they slowed neurogenesis in infant mice, the infants retained memories longer than expected. The implication? Your baby brain wasn't too weak to hold memories. It was too busy rebuilding itself, and that rebuilding came at a cost. Then there's an even deeper layer, the question of self, to form what researchers call autobiographical memory. Memory where you are the central character of your own story. You first need a concept of self. Developmental psychologists Mark Howe and Mary Courage argued in the late 1990s that this sense of self doesn't fully exist before roughly 18 to 24 months. The classic test involves placing a dot of rouge on the baby's nose and putting them in front of a mirror. Before 18 months, babies treat the reflection as a stranger and ignore the mark. After that age, they recognize themselves and reach for it. That moment of self-recognition lines up closely with the earliest point autobiographical memory becomes possible at all. Without a you yet to anchor experiences to, there's nothing for memory to attach itself to. Finally, language. Developmental psychologist Catherine Nelson found that language doesn't just describe memories, it organizes them into something retrievable. Before speech, experiences exist only as raw sensory fragments, sound, light, emotion, with no framework holding them together. Once children start having conversational exchanges with adults about the past, their ability to form lasting memories improves sharply. This even varies by culture. Psychologist Chi Wang at Cornell found that Western children raised with frequent personal narrative conversations typically report first memories around age 3.5. Among the Maori of New Zealand, where oral storytelling about personal history is deeply emphasized, earliest memories often reach back to age 2.5. In some East Asian cultures with less individual-focused narration, first memories tend to begin closer to age 4.
So nothing about your missing early years was a single failure. Your hippocampus wasn't ready. The flood of new neurons rewrote the circuits anyway. You had no stable self to attach experiences to, and no language yet to structure them. Every single person who has ever lived has this exact same gap, not because their brain was too simple, but because it was doing something far more demanding than remembering. It was building the person who would eventually do the remembering.